I intended for the recording to go one way, and then I had a huge brain fart, and I just literally froze and couldn't say the next words. So I had to stop myself and redo it. And then, I decided I'm just gonna talk about what I actually wanted to talk about, what was on my mind. The previous one was going to be about the value of things, but come at a later time once it comes back to me. But as of now, the thing that I wanted to talk about it's two things and they kind of go together. Growing up, the two things I was really afraid of, and one more than the other, were love and death. And I was scared shitless of death. Growing up, semi-religious. I mean, I grew up with two different religions, and I did go to church every Sunday up until I think I was until we moved to California, actually. But um, we would go to the mosque and pray. And I remember I went to a few Quran classes and Bible classes and all these things, right? And the traditional sense of religion, there's heaven, there's hell, there are deeds. You do this, you do that, and then in the afterlife, God or whatever determines if you're gonna go to hell or heaven, depending on how much good or bad you've done. And I remember as a kid, I was a pansy. I was scared. Because everyone was telling me everything was so bad that I was convinced I was gonna go to hell, and I didn't know how to handle that. And then on the other side of it, I was scared of love because it just I didn't have a hard childhood, but there were moments that just made it seem like, what the hell? How is this even possible? And like, why am I going through such things? And as you get older, you see the nature of the world, and you meet people, and there are bullies, and there are people that are bad, and there's robberies going on, and crime, and this, and it's just like, what the hell? And from where I was, love seemed very conditional. And what I mean is, like, you would only get love if you looked a certain way, or if you acted a certain way, or if you had a certain amount of money. But it was mostly about how much you had and how you looked. So I was like, well, I'm probably not getting any love because I was always very insecure about the way I looked. And, I didn't grow up in the finest of conditions when it came to money. We didn't have much. And so I was like, well, I'm not getting any of those, right? And the love I thought I could fake. I could maybe buy my way through it. Do something to get attention from someone that I thought would make them love me, or, make a certain kind of friend or whatever, right? But with death, I didn't quite understand it. And as I got older, I got even more scared because as I got older, in trying to deal or cope with the fear of death, I did things that, in religious terms, had even further confirmed my entrance into hell, right? So I was like, well, shit, I am fucking screwed. And again, I always asked why. Like, why am I even alive? What is the purpose? Like, if you look at the process of birth, two people have sex, and then the sperm rushes up and attaches to an egg, and then, conception starts. And I was like, well, what the hell? Like, what fucking sperm or egg cell? And my parents, like, why me? Like, I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask to be alive. Like, why did I have to come and suffer, and then I have to be the one to go to hell because these two decided to have sex back in whatever year, 1995, I think, to have my ass, So these questions never stopped, and I just kept having more and more. And then in high school, I had a teacher who was very, she was an atheist. She didn't believe in God, and she had a very robust personality. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to be like her, and I'm not going to believe in God, and I'm not going to do this. And, I thought, okay, well, at least now I could say I don't believe in God, and I could do whatever I wanted to do, and it wouldn't matter because, there's no God and there's no afterlife. But part of me was like, well, you could say that, but what if there really is an afterlife, So, I mean, it kept going on. And again, like I said, the questions kept going on, and the fear kept getting bigger. And anytime anyone brought up death, or I'd watch movies with someone dying, especially those damn Armageddon movies with the end of the world. Oh my God, those used to have me. I would literally be like in bed crying because I was like, I don't want to die, but I don't know how to. I don't know how to deal with it. Like, I'm too afraid, because I was too afraid to do anything, but I was also too afraid to die. But I wanted to enjoy being alive. It didn't make sense, and it was way too much for. How old was I? I think 17, 18 turning. It was too much, right? But I mean, fast forward again up until 20, I think 19, 18. I started maturing. I was in my 20s at this point, and then actually in 2020, I was with my cousin at my sister's house, and we were talking, and we got very deep, and she was kind of freaking out, and I was trying to calm her down, and we were just having these conversations about our childhood and life in general and experiences, and we were looking up at the stars. It was a very like dark area where my sister lived, and you could see the stars pretty clearly. And I don't remember what she asked me, but I remember saying something like, it doesn't matter because ultimately, like, that's us up there. We're just like, this human experience is just so. I can't remember what I told her, but I remember just looking at the stars and like just knowing that that's where we'd all return. And that kind of got me thinking further, and her and I continued our conversation, and I said some things, and I remember telling her, life is just the experience. Because I remember I'd hear people saying, like, we're spiritual beings having the human experience, but I didn't understand what they were saying, what they meant by that. And so that day, it kind of solidified. And I remember telling her, think of life as I don't want to say challenge, but it's the path, and the death is not the end. It's the finish line. It's the start. It's once you've reached that point, you're now starting your actual life, your actual being, your existence. And she was like, huh? And I was like, no, like, I think she thought I was getting suicidal. I was like, no, I'm not saying that I'm suicidal, but I'm saying that I'm not afraid of death anymore. Like, I actually look forward to it now because I know that whatever experience I'm having here in this physical realm, it's not finite. It's not the end. It's just here as part of some experience for us to maybe learn something. I don't know if I understand the human experience, but it's an experience nevertheless, right? But our innate being is what we become when we return, when we die. And I started glorifying death in some way, but again, I wasn't suicidal. I just I found comfort in it. But that leads me to the next point about love. I've been watching a lot of like near-death experiences, and people, all of them have been saying that when they return, when they go, they're greeted by some like this presence that just feels so massive, and just pure endless love and light and every like good feeling you could possibly think of. And that is our innate being. And they all say they feel whole and they feel like themselves, even though they don't have like actual bodies, and like they don't look like anything. They're just like this big beam of light, but it's just like it's love, right? And they just know it. And I've felt that when I've done a few psychedelic experiences, and the way I came to understand and be love, I guess. I mean, look, I'm still learning. I'm still human, and I get tested, right? But this was back in 2019. Well, we don't need to talk about that. But I've learned that it's I mean, one is subjective, but it's our innate being. We are love, and we're here having this experience, and it, when people are born, we're not born to hate. We're born with love, but depending on how you're raised and the environment you're in and all of that, then that kind of starts getting suppressed and pushed away, and the other feelings take over. But it's all around us, and it's in everything, because we are everything, and everything is us. We are all made up of the same thing. You might look at a table and think you're superior to it because you have a heart and a brain and a consciousness, but at the end of the day, at the end of the day, you and that table are made of the same matter, right? Um, and I think that's, people make fun of tree huggers, but I get it now. Because that tree is a part of you. That tree has that same matter as you. It's when I think when people start to understand that we are all connected, the world would be a better place. But everything in general we'd be more compassionate with one another and empathetic. You're no different than I am. We're just having separate experiences, but we're made from the same exact materials, and we're both made of love and energy. And it's everywhere and all around us. We don't need to look outside of us for it. And the beauty of this is, for me at least, death and love go together, because when we die we go back to being our innate selves. And what is that? It's love. And I'm fantasizing about something I've never experienced, but from the things I've seen, it seems pretty damn close to what I have in mind. Um, anyway, so I recorded that a few days back, and I intended for it to be a little bit longer, and then I kind of just had another brain fart and stopped it where I did. But now I'm back, and I wanted to elaborate on both death and love. But since I ended on love, I'll talk about that. In society, and if you look at everything around us, right, we're not really trained to love people. And the one thing that I know is, well, I've come to know, you can really understand love is if you, okay, hold on, my words are all coming out at once. You can really, Jesus fucking Christ, what I'm trying to say is, you can really only understand love if you've seen the other side of it. If you've seen or experienced the nasty, the bad, the ugly, the painful, right? Because then you'll come to understand what it is. As I was mentioning the other day, for me it felt conditional, on external things. For other people it might be different, it might be spiritual, mental, I don't know, but it's conditional nevertheless, right? And so when you go from experiencing a love like that, where you think you have to have something, be something, do something, to you just love, it's an entirely different feeling. And I say that because I went from, I've experienced different kinds of love. There's love for your family, there's love for your friends, there's love for your lovers, and they're all amazing in their own respective ways. And I don't think that I don't think you can define love. I don't, not anymore. I used to think it meant this, or it meant that, or it meant, selflessness, or that. Well, first of all, love can't be selfless, because you have to love. Well, hold on. Wait. Because, so love can't be selfless, because you have to love yourself first. You have to be selfish in order to be selfless. And if you understand that, you do. And if you don't, maybe you will one day. But no, you truly, how people say, people won't love you unless you love yourself. Well, let's turn that around. You can't love others if you don't love yourself. Right? Forget about people loving you. What about you loving others? If you have this skewed concept of love that that you can't get love because you look a certain way or whatever, then you're not going to love other people because they look a certain way, they act a certain way, they behave a certain way, they do something a certain way, because those are the limitations you're putting on yourself. So yeah, love yourself first in order to love others, and not, just for others to love you back. And it's not even about getting love back. It's being able to love others despite that. Like, can you learn to love someone and say I love you without hearing those words back? I mean, shit, a lot of us are trained to say I love you when we think or assume that we're going to get it back, right? But can you really tell someone I love you and be okay with not hearing it back and still love that person? It Let's see, I'm trying to figure out if I want to talk about my personal experiences with it. For me, it was very hard for me to say I love you to my family because growing up, like we all kind of always fought, and I grew up in a big family, always yelling, fighting, screaming, and we weren't kind of taught to be emotional like that. It was a very rare occurrence if it even occurred. And I remember I always felt, and I think, well, I know my younger sister still feels this way, but for me, it always felt kind of gross because, not that it was a gross thing to do, but it felt gross because I wasn't used to it, one, and two, I felt like I'm now vulnerable and I looked weak in front of my family, and I couldn't process that. So I never really said it. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but for the people who probably grew up in a similar environment, they'd understand it. It just felt like, ew, but I don't remember the first time I said I love you to my family. I think my younger sister, I told her I love you for the first time in 2021, I think, New Year's going into 2022. I had FaceTime her and she was like, are you okay? And it's funny because in my family, when we say I love you to one another, we think that that person is depressed and going through something, so they express it, which is not the case, but that's how we're kind of been trained because it's not something that we would do commonly, And then I remember I told my brother I loved him for the first time in 2022, I think it was. I was like up till 3. I was up at 3 a.m, and it's funny because that I realized I could say to him because I realized I had love for someone else, and so, but anyway, the point of this is that I don't know how to, it's hard to describe the feeling. Like, again, you can't describe it, but that's what it's all about, having compassion and love for the next person. If you're at the office, and I've been trying to be more cognizant with it too, again, it's the assumption, but I was known to be more like very snappy and intolerant or impatient of people, and I always say that I don't have time for stupidity and blah blah blah, but now I'm even like, I find myself at work when something occurs, I'm much more, and that's not to say that I'm not a compassionate person. I've always been, I think, very empathetic and sympathetic towards people, but now it's kind of different. Now before I speak, I take a second literally, and I'm like, hold on. So for example, every morning I walk into the office, I'll say hi to like 2 people, and then and I'm not deliberately ignoring them. It's just not something in me where I'm saying, where I have the habit of saying good morning to everyone, right? But I'm like, I want to be that, but like I want to be more chipper, just because like, that one thing, that one act of that, me saying good morning to that one person could change their whole day for the better, right? And I'm going to explain that in a second too. But so this last, I think, few weeks, I've, now like when I walk in through the front entrance, I usually go through the back door, but I say good morning and I try to smile and I, just make my way, because that can change, the receptionist, say whoever else is there, because they might feel like we don't know what other people are going through, and I think in this human journey, a lot of us are selfish. We're so consumed with our own problems because we think like that's all that matters, and it's me, but it's we. We're all the same. We're all connected. And if this is what we're preaching, this is what we're going on about, then Shouldn't you care? Like, love thy neighbor as it says in the Bible. It's making more and more sense now, right? Um, next time you're at the grocery store, smile at the freaking clerk. Like, it's not gonna ruin your day, and in fact, it's gonna change your day so much better. And it's just something so effortless. So, I don't know if priceless is the correct word, but it goes a long way. And, they say the butterfly effect, that one little action on your end that probably doesn't mean anything made a huge difference to the other person, being kind and loving. There's nothing wrong with it. I know people might feel embarrassed or like whatever. And, well, I'm just too pissed today. Okay, but you can't like just take 5 seconds to not be pissed, I don't know. To me, like these last few weeks, I don't even care about the manifestation aspect of it all anymore. It's just understanding myself and my personal journey and the human experience and all of that. But the and back to the death part. When we die, we don't take anything. The Egyptians used to mummify their bodies and then they would bury with themselves their gold and treasures and everything because they thought they would. And I don't know what the hell they thought, but I don't believe that at all. We don't take anything with us. So it doesn't matter what you have here, but it's the emotions because that's what gets transferred. Because guess what? That's also the energy. And we're all energy, right? So if our emotions is what we can take with us and look back on or experience in the afterlife, then let's feel those good emotions. Again, I've been understanding more and more, or learning more and more that what we feel here is just a little smidge of the amount that we can actually feel. They say our brain, we only use like 10% or 7%, whatever it is. So imagine your emotions, you're only feeling a small percentage of what it actually is. And, in these stories and experiences, people say even the littlest thing, like they have these minor acts that they do that may have hurt someone. Maybe they were rude or something, and they feel that person's exact emotions. And it's like next level, and you can see how your actions affect that person. But yeah, I don't know. It's easier said than done, but it's okay because at the end of the day, if it gets done, then that's the whole point, right? And if I think, and that's why I started this, because I've always said if I could even help just one person, then I'm good. I've fulfilled my prophecy, and I don't say that from an egotistic place. I say that from like a genuine place. I've always wanted to help people at whatever capacity I can. And I think now more than anything else, forget the charity and the fundraising and the physical things, but it's like if you can make someone feel good, that is the ultimate from my perspective. If you could shift someone's emotions from feeling like shit to like feeling worthy and important, which was what I wanted to talk about the other day, then you've done a great fucking job, because that's what it is. I don't care what you have or what you owe or what your name is or what, like, can you make this person feel good? And it's amazing because you actually can, and you don't even need to do anything. You don't even need to try. It just comes because that's who we are. That's our innate being. Anywho, I think that's all that I wanted to say. I wanted to talk about my own journey of love, but I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I should, huh? Not today. I'll probably make that a separate thing and talk about that more in depth too. But I mean, it's one of my favorite experiences, and it's a beautiful experience to me, right? That's because it's my experience. But that's when I realized I was in love, and it's an amazing feeling. Share the love, guys. Not to sound like a hippie from what was his name, from the Harvard professor, Timothy Lee, I think, or Leary era, but those hippies, they had it down, man. That's what it's all about. Peace and love. Peace and love. But I will say, don't forget that you are loved because you are love. And go share that. Go share it with your pets. Go share it with nature. Go share it with your family, your friends, your loved ones, whomever, with a stranger. Seriously, I know, again, like it might sound so cliche, but I don't know, man. Like, these people have it right. They have it so freaking right. So yeah.